One of the most important skills to develop as a lead guitarist is the ability to track the melody of a song. Now, by the melody we mean the line that the lead vocalist sings over the verse or chorus of a typical popular song. Working with the foundation that we've built using the blues and country scales, we have a number of options available to us to approach this. Now, let's kick off by looking at improvising over a tune in a minor key, and we're going to use the tune House of the Rising Sun in a key of A minor, which you'll find a backing track for from the toolbox. Firstly, if a song is in a minor key, you simply use the blues scales of the same key. So in this case I'm going to use the blues scales in the key of A. And let's start just by seeing how close we can get to the melody just using the scale notes. I'm able to get pretty close to the melody using only the notes from the scale. However, towards the end there is a note that I feel I'm missing. I kind of went up at the end there and sort of improvised my way out of trouble because the note I really want is this one here, a G sharp. So at the end I would have liked to have gone closer to what I hear as the melody. This sort of situation frequently occurs when you're using a key-specific method of improvising, and this is for the simple reason that songs very often use occasional notes drawn from outside the key or outside one specific scale. Now, when you get this situation, there are two possible approaches to take. One is that you go with these extra notes and simply adjust your fingering and add them into your pattern. Or the second is that you use notes from the scale pattern you're using that sound like they substitute for the notes that you're missing. So you alter the melody in a nice sort of inventive way that sounds pretty good, just to use the notes from your patterns. Both are good methods of solving the problem. So, as an example of the first method, knowing that this note is necessary to help me stick to my idea of what the melody should be, I'm just going to add that into the pattern. So in effect, my blues scale has an extra note in it there. So I would play the last line something like this. The other method is I would play that last line and then I would play something else that sort of works instead of that note but is still on my pattern. Wasn't too happy with that, let's try something else. Like that seems to work okay to me. This is something that jazz singers and blues singers do anyway. They alter phrasing sometimes just to impose their own style on something. So it's perfectly okay to do that. Once you pin down the melody, there are then a number of approaches you can use to base your solo on it. You can of course just play the melody straight, and sometimes that's totally fine and totally appropriate. Another trick is to take the notes of the melody and just vary the timing of them. You might perhaps repeat some of the notes more often than they normally are in the melody. You might bring phrases in a little earlier or a little later than they're normally used. That might sound something like this. song like this is to play the notes of the melody, but in the sort of gaps between the main notes, fill in with sort of scale-based runs. A little bit like this. You can do is isolate the main notes of the melody and build sort of blues licks around them. That would sound something like this. Or you can deliberately avoid using the actual melody of the song and create a whole new melody based on the same chords. This is a more challenging approach, as the original melody of the song, if you know it well, has a sort of magnetism about it, keeps pulling you into it. But let's have a go at that. Quite a struggle for me to get away from the original melody because it comes straight out of that chord sequence, really, and because I've probably been listening to that for nearly 50 years. Anyway, ultimately the trick is to really blend all these approaches together in the same solo. What I think audiences get sort of turned on by is hearing enough of the melody to kind of recognise it, but also bits of soloing that take the melody off into new directions, either rhythmically or melodically. So try and blend all these things together. Perhaps something like this. Close look at how you might approach playing a solo over a song in a minor key. Songs in minor keys, blues scales, really good basis or really good point of departure for playing your solos. Now, when a song's in a major key, as you might guess, you can do the same thing using the country scale. Here's a traditional tune, traditional American folk tune in the key of G major. So first off, I'm going to see if I can find the melody, restricting myself only to the notes of the E blues scale. Remember, the E blues scale gives you the notes of the G country scale. Tune well, and almost everybody on the other side of the Atlantic probably knows it a good deal better than me. You would have heard a few places there where I just couldn't quite make the tune work because I was trying to stick within the scale. Once or twice I had to nick notes outside the scale, and once or twice I had to perhaps thin the tune out a bit, really. So quite hard to play a tune like that purely with the notes from the scale. So definitely a case where I would allow myself to add the extra notes in, and really with a bit of experience your ears just tell you where to find these notes. Quite a good thing just to practice hunting for them. So here it is one more time with me trying to get as close to the melody as I can, regardless of whether I'm using the notes from the scale or not. See how many notes you can spot that I'm bringing in from outside the scale. Notice I'm working inside the 4th position blues scale pattern. That's my point of reference. Definitely wasn't there, was it? Alright, not brilliant, but easier to do than when I'm trying to avoid the notes from the scale, from outside the scale. All the approaches that we showed you earlier in the lesson about how to improvise over a minor tune can obviously also be used over a major tune. But rather than show you that, let's just have a look at one other approach that we didn't look at yet, which is the idea of playing something in a contrasting style to the backing. Now a great example of this might be Hendrix at Woodstock Festival, where he played a version of the American National Anthem in a really psychedelic manner. That became, what would you call it? It became pretty iconic of that whole era, really. Okay, so in this case we've got a cute little folksy tune about roaming buffalo and deer and antelope playing, and it's all very nice and peaceful and idyllic. But imagine what would happen to that scene if someone like Sarah Palin came along with her 12-gauge shotgun. For that we're going to need some sustain. It's a lot of fun because of the contrast. It still references the melody, but it kind of takes it off somewhere else. Okay, now let's look at one more tune in a major key. We're going to look at this one just to show you one more element of improvising melodically. Now we're going to choose another American folk tune, this time in the key of C, and because we're still working within the country scale, we're going to be using the A blues scale patterns. Particularly overused chord sequence, and because of this it lends itself to us stealing snippets of other tunes to sort of bend into our solo. See how many of these you can spot. Okay, how many of those did you spot? In jazz, this is known as quoting, and with some jazz musicians it's almost a point of honour to see how many quotes they can sneak past their audience without them noticing. But actually, it's a really, just trying to find quotes is a really good form of ear training, so I can commend that to you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, the backing tracks that I'm copying there, playing along to there, are available from the toolbox with this lesson, and there are a great many more backing tracks available from the main menu if you just click on the backing tracks link. At first, you may find it quite difficult tracking down melodies on the scales, but rest assured that actually just attempting to do it is itself really good practice. It's good ear training, and like anything else, if you stick at it, after a while you will gradually find it easier and easier and great fun to do. Okay, now in the next lesson we're going to wrap up this whole subject for the time being of using blues scales and country scales to play along to songs. And what we're going to do is look at giving you some tips on which scale to choose to play along with what kind of song. So we're going to go over various different types of chord sequence and help you select which scale to use when. That should be interesting. So, see you then.